Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. Welcome to Paul's Monday Market Update number 227 for Monday, 15th of June, 2026. I hope you're well. Hope you've had a good weekend. Hope you're ready for what is going to be an interesting week ahead for us. Okay, lots going on, lots been going on, of course, and lots to come this week. So it is going to be an interesting week for us. If you are joining us for the first time, the Monday Market Update is just that. It is me flying through as much as I can share with you in the next 30 minutes, looking at strength and weakness within FX, indices, and commodities markets, looking at some charts of interest you might want to add to your watch list, and then a look at the live markets. It's not a signal service, it's not trade recommendations. It's me sharing with you what I'm looking at, which might be of relevance or help to you in your own trading and investing decisions. And as always, okay, you're always very welcome here, but just remember, you're always responsible for your own trading and investing decisions. And if you want a little bit more help and support, you can also join the VTP Trader Accountability Group, which is all about helping you build discipline, accountability, and consistency in your trading, regardless of whether you've been trading for 2 months or 2 decades, or regardless of whether you're a scalper, an intraday, a position, a swing, etc. Once again, there's a bit.ly code there you can use, or the QR code. I'll take you to details. Indices and commodities. So we've got Dow on the weekly, Nasdaq on the weekly, S&P 500 on the weekly, Russell on the weekly, FTSE on the weekly, Nikkei on the weekly, DAX, and oil. Okay, so listen, we looked at XLE. All right, just look at where we've been going. Look where we are now. Okay, around about $80. Okay, that's West Texas. All right, but I think Brent went even further lower this morning. Okay, so that's a reflection of that kind of risk, that kind of wore off risk on. All right, and as I said, I wonder whether that'll also have an impact on XLE as we've just looked at. But certainly, if we look at the American indexes, a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about how, we were printing these kind of bearish engulfing key reversal candles. Okay, we've certainly printed those, a bearish pin bar on Dow, engulfing key reversal candles on Russell and on S&P 500 and Nasdaq. But actually, what we can see is last week we kind of reversed it, and you can see already the electronic markets. They're already pushing higher, aren't they? All right, that's a real flip there. There's a real, relief. Risk on relief rally going up there. Okay, and that's pushing that particular higher. We also saw that with the Nikkei overnight. You can see that there. DAX hasn't followed through as particular much. Okay, as we'd look at. All right, DAX has been a little bit. It certainly last week. Intraday wise was a fantastic week for last week for trading down to the 50 and the bounce up off it. We can see that it certainly is gapped up, but it hasn't really particularly followed through there, has it? Not exactly really exciting in the same way as those American indexes and the Nikkei was there. Okay, and it just to me seems like every time we get north of 25,000, all right, let's just put that level in on here. Okay, let's just bear with me 1 second. Let's put that boy in. So, look, as I said, pretty much every time we see it north of 25,000, it's almost as like it's it gets hypoxia. All right, okay, it gets a little bit of out of oxygen, and then punts its way down, rolls its way over. Okay, and so I have to see, is there any chance of it turning 25,000 into a resistance area, turning it into support and into a base to a move higher, or is this just going to be a little bit of, I wonder if a little bit of profit taking before we get into the kind of summer doldrums. All right, so you might want to take a watch on that. Closer to home, FTSE weekly chart, not massively dissimilar to that XLE chart, is it? It's been in a long uptrend, but now we're coiling up, and you've heard me talk about this for the last couple of kind of weeks here. Let me just update that. Is that I thought that we were coiling up in FTSE, all right, and I think we've got, as I said earlier, we've got a lot of UK data coming out this week to keep an eye on, but also we have that by-election, and I can't help but think that maybe the big boys are just sat waiting to see whether Burnham, King of the North, well, self-proclaimed King of the North, you can other adjectives other than king are available. Okay, whichever word you particularly wish to use, ladies and gentlemen, but if he does win and he does put Burnham does win and he does then go for a leadership challenge against Starmer, the rumours over the weekend is that Nut Job Net Zero Miliband would be his chancellor, and it just makes me it makes you want to hold your head in your hands. All right, but anyway, it is what it is. There will be opportunity for us as traders, and that's ultimately what we've got to watch. But as I said, I think that's still just coiling up. All right, and we'll have to wait till the end of this week to get some clarity on the way that moves. Let's have a quick look at gold. All right, so gold. Let's get up on the weekly chart. As I said, gold. We have drifted way, okay, but look at where we are. We're kind of sat at that 50 period moving average. Does it have an opportunity to hold that as a base and work its way higher, at least maybe up to that 20 period moving average? Certainly, if we go down to the daily chart, you can see that actually, there's been a little bit of bullishness, but is that just a dead cat bounce off as I say, risk on relief rally? What we see is silver, right, has been not massively dissimilar in terms of where did we end up last week? Bang, down at the 50, printing a nice bullish pin bar off it. Okay, is it? And we can see this week we've started with a little bit of a bounce off it as well. Okay, really nice. And this was across the view. We had a really nice bullish key reversal there. Okay, from Thursday. Bang, are we going to get up above the daily 200? Are we going to hold up above the 70? All of that's bullish. You would expect if there is a risk on relief rally, that would be generally good for silver, okay? And we'd see whether that follows through. Also, the crypto bros will be hoping that perhaps maybe some of that risk on relief rally will bail them out, okay? A bit like we've just said, the gold's been at the weekly 50, silver's been at the weekly 50, Bitcoin is at the weekly 200 there. Okay, that's sort of the kind of the area we're looking at 60,000 there. 60,000 there. Is this going to be support for Bitcoin? Okay, if we go down to the daily, you might say, well, Paul, there we go. There's a bit of a scruffy double bottom there on the daily chart at 60,000, but you can see we're sort of just kind of working our way a little bit higher. And I think a lot of this will be because of certainly of the last few days. Okay, it will probably be because of the dollar. Okay, having had the dollar strengthen significantly, now that when invariably the peace deal looked as if it wasn't going to last or even hold. Now we're looking at it a little bit differently. Okay, so